about 850 kids, 7th through 12th grade. And so I just want to start by saying that I went about this talk a little bit differently because I am so incredibly passionate about making sure that the work that we do as school leaders and as educators helps change the dynamic long term for our students. And when I talk about our students, I'm talking about kids who come from generational poverty and come from positions where it's hard for them to change what might happen to them without significant support. So because I'm so passionate about that, I'm not really going to talk at all about my journey, right? Like, I have, you're right, it is a little bit, just a little. I do want to say a little bit about a couple of kids to tell you about my journey, but that's all to sort of set the stage for why we should care about getting kids into and through college. So I started out my career in rural South Texas as part of the RGB Corps, and I had the typical, his name was literally, and he was the typical, and got in trouble left and right, turned out to be like my kind of kid. Love this kid to death. I still have a picture of him on my desk to remind me of what was out there, because I didn't get to him. Not enough anyway, right? Like, he didn't have any support at home. Teachers didn't really have any expectations that he would do anything other than become the drug dealer they expected him to become. And so he did. And so he's been in and out of jail since I left Texas, all that time ago. And he's sort of one of the big failures of my life. But then I look at Erin, who similarly went to Clemente when I taught there, and loved this kid and helped him figure a way to get out of his gang situation, right? We moved him to Texas to live with brother, and now he has a couple of kids and is working a minimum wage job at Walmart. So it's not a great story, but it's a better story than maybe he would have had. And then I look at Kara, who is a student who I had when I was the principal at Chicago Academy High School, and she was one of our One Goal Fellows from our first One Goal cohort, and she is now a junior at Western Illinois, and she is going to be the first person from her family to graduate from college. And so I think as my career progressed, my expectations for my students progressed. And so then I look at Anna, who I had a conversation with right before I came over here. She's a current 8th grader at my school. By almost every measure, she will drop out of high school. And I believe it is my job to make sure that we set the expectations for her and for all of our students to make sure that that doesn't happen, and that instead, ends up in college and finishing college. And so as school leaders, I think the most important thing we do is set expectations. And so now, I'm going to try and convince you why we should change the dynamic that society has created. So right now in society, this is the expectation we have. And this is especially true in minority populations, that our best students will finish college. I believe we should have the expectation that all of our students will finish college. And I'm unapologetic about that. A lot of people say, oh, but college isn't for everybody. Well, you know what? That's not our decision to make. That's not our job to do. Our job is to prepare kids for the best possible opportunity they can get. And here's why college is the best possible opportunity. So I'm going to talk for a minute about something I like to call the career myth. So in K-12 schools, we talk a lot about preparation for college and career. I really advocate that we drop that "and career" piece, because I challenge you to come up with careers that do not take some sort of post-high school education. They are very, very few and far between. And when I make this argument, people are like, well, what about electricians? What about plumbers? What about this? What about that? And I say, that's great. Do you know what a living wage is for a family of 4 in the United States? It's about $55,000 a year. The quantity of jobs that you can get at or above $55,000 a year without any formalized college, without a formalized college degree, are very limited. So let me share a little evidence of that for you. So this graph, which I know is really hard to see, but it is a slew of different jobs that you don't have to have a bachelor's to get. And the number of jobs that were available basically in the last 15 years in these industries. And they are high-earning occupations. But if you can see over here, high-earning is 33,000, 52,000, 34,000, 30,000, 34,000. I just want you to sit in your chairs and think, if I only made $34,000 a year, could I live the life I live? And is that what we want for our kids? And I argue that this whole concept that we're preparing kids for college and career in K-12 is actually damaging to them. It's a myth. We have to get them into and through college. So here's some of the statistics about the differences. And this is very current data. This is 2014 data. So here's the difference. With a bachelor's degree, you get $45,500 on average. Without, you see 30,000 for some college, 28,000 for just high school grads. So the numbers are clear. The quality of life is different. And so when we say we want to prepare our kids for college and career, I believe the myth part, or the career part, is a myth. So then the question is, how do we do it? And that's where 13 years of experience as a high school administrator can come in handy. Because we can talk a lot about preparation for college, and there's no like silver bullet, but there's sort of some silver bullets, right? So there are really three levers of success when we talk about getting kids ready for the rigors and the challenges they're going to face in college, particularly students who come from families that don't have a background of going to college, right? Like I have two parents who graduated from college. When I was in high school, it wasn't about are you going to college, it was where are you going to college, right? For a lot of our students, they don't have that background. They might be the first or second or third person to attempt college in their lives, right? So we have to understand that we have to prepare them not just academically. Of course, that is our core job, but if we fail in the social and emotional aspects of it, then we are going to fail them. And so, we're going to talk just briefly about one bullet point from each of these categories. So first I want to talk about the importance of making sure that our students have access to really rigorous courses. So if we just look at the difference in any of these subgroups of a kid who has taken an AP class versus one who has not, and this is irrelevant of whether or not they've passed the test, their chances of graduating from college increase by 4-fold. I mean, that is life-changing. And you can't tell me that we can't find AP and dual credit classes that every kid can take. Because AP exists all across the board in English and math and science and reading and art and music. It's all over. We can find classes for every kid. Second piece. We talk about social, right? So we look at all of these sort of things where we want kids to be able to use appropriate language and work effectively with others. And we've all read Lisa Delpit and things like that, and we understand these kinds of things, but do we teach them? Do we value things like an advisory program that actually helps kids to understand how we interact with one another? If we don't, we're not giving them these tools. And then they're not going to be able to advocate for themselves when the time comes in college. They're going to have to do that if they're going to be successful at getting through college. And so the last piece, on the emotional piece, so I'm taking an opportunity to sort of look at the finances of college here, because for a lot of my students that has been sort of gut-wrenching and challenging for them to understand how to pay for college and the damage that that can do to like families and how hard that is, right? And I think it's our job to make sure that they actually understand the numbers, right? I'm not saying that the price of college isn't going up, it certainly is, right? You see that number, it's huge. I'm saying that the price of college compared to the price of not going to college is also increasing. right? So that gap is actually getting bigger and bigger every year. And right now, that gap is about $16,000 a year. We saw that on an earlier slide. So if you consider that the average kid walks out of college with about $50,000 in debt, in Illinois it's a little less, which is nice, but on average across the country it's about $50,000. If you're making $15,000 a year more, you pay that debt off pretty quickly, just in the gap. So when we talk about the rising costs of college, we need to make sure that our students understand that college is expensive, but not going to college is way more expensive. So the bottom line here is when I talk about to me, it's about making sure that 10, 15, 20 years down the line, they're able to live the life that they want to live. And the only way that we can do that as educators is make sure that they are ready to go to and get through college. Thank you very much.